take a breath together. Where are my Bible people? Do we know where in the Bible it talks about faith? Hebrews 11:1. So I'm going to read from the Lamsa version of the Bible. Why the Lamsa version? Because George Lamsa grew up speaking the exact same Aramaic language as Jesus. And he spent his life with the Peshitta, the original writings, making them a bit more accurate based on the language that they were written in versus all of the translations. I don't care what it is. It can be your grandmother's recipe for cornbread. Every time it's translated, it's changed just a little bit. So I really appreciate the work that George Lamsa did. So here's what it says. Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, just as it was the substance of things which have come to pass. It is the evidence of things not seen. And in this way, it became a testimonial of the elders. For it is through faith we understand that the worlds were framed by the word of God, so that the things which are seen came to be from those which are not seen. Right? So what's he talking about? Anybody watch crime shows? Okay. What do they follow to solve the crime? The evidence. Right? So the key here is the evidence of things not seen but hoped for. Where's the evidence? If we're trying to base faith on nothingness, we will have a faith of nothingness. Right? That's not what it's suggesting. And if you spend time with the rest of the book of Hebrews, it is one testimonial after another of where things happened where people didn't see it would happen. Right? Think about your own life. I'm just going to go out on a limb and say anybody in the room above the age of 12 has at least one situation that they can reference where they couldn't see how it was going to work out with any level of positivity. Those moments where it's just disaster and that's all we see. And now, looking back, things actually worked out very differently than we imagined, worked out well, and we still don't know how that happened. Anybody have any of those situations? Right? That's what they're talking about. The evidence of things not seen. You didn't see how it was going to work out. You hoped it would, but you didn't see how it was going to work out. And it did. All I personally need is to look in the mirror. Because the fact that I'm alive and breathing is evidence of something far greater. When you're introduced to heroin at the age of 7, when you're sticking a needle full of it in your arm by the time you're 9 years old, you shouldn't be alive at 64. And here I am, much to the annoyance of many. Not my problem. I can create your annoyance, not going to solve it for you. And I invite you to adopt the same thing for you. Right? I want to speak to a fundamental of science of mind, because I am aware that there is some misunderstanding operating in our community, and I'm sure throughout the world. Right? Science of mind does not teach that God is only expressing as human beings. That's a misinterpretation of the one hearing the information. The clothes that you are wearing this morning are God expressing as your clothes. The chair you're sitting on. If you had breakfast, God had God for breakfast. Literally. Right? And if that's challenging for you because of your history with the word God, it's consciousness. That's what Ernest Holmes was actually talking about. And then as language evolved, the word consciousness got a little messy because there's so many definitions of it. Right? If I am medically conscious, I can be conscious, as in aware, of consciousness. The infinite. And perhaps when I am medically unconscious, it is possible that I'm actually more conscious of consciousness. Right? We use consciousness a lot of different ways. What are we really talking about? Right? When we say the collective consciousness, if you hear that about a collection of infinite consciousnesses, that is not what we're saying. Because there's only one consciousness. One infinite intelligence. It has lots of names. Science calls it the quantum field. Right? There's only one. Collective consciousness is actually referring to the collective awareness of how we use consciousness. Right? Ernest Holmes said over and over again, particularly in the 1926 version, we create nothing. Nothing. Creation already happened. Creation isn't even still happening. It just happened. Everything was created, and that's what it is. And we're using that. We use it based on our thought, based on our word. That's why we teach a class called The Power of Your Word. We set consciousness, the absolute consciousness, in motion. We use it. We didn't create it. It created us. It is expressing as us. It is through faith, our belief in things not seen but hoped for. What do you actually believe in? All we really need to do is believe in consciousness. Really, that's all we really need. We understand that the worlds, now notice, worlds is plural. One of the challenges, I think personally, and this is just my personal take on it, one of the challenges with our vision of a world that works for everyone is that it's singular and there's an assumption that there's only one world. And I'm pretty sure that every one of us lives in our own little world. Right? Yeah. I think there's an opportunity for us to re-envision that statement. That worlds are framed. The form, right? Framed by the Word of God. Framed by consciousness. Right? We set consciousness in motion. After that, we can't control a thing. That's the activity of law. We have zero control over the outcome. That's why we talk about spiritual mind treatment. Right? Because what we can change is the thought. What happens with that thought, once we set it in motion, we can't control. It's not like our vehicle that when we we turn the key and start the engine, we still got some control. Pull down that little lever, puts it in gear, we still have control. We push on the gas. We can determine how fast, how slow, which direction. We can make turns. We don't get to do that with the law. with law of how life unfolds life. Our job, our opportunity, our role in this creative process is how we set it in motion. By what thought are we framing it? The rest, that's not ours. And I think that's the frustrating part for humanity, because we really like to control stuff, right? Maybe it's just me. Right? If you've ever been in a marriage, you understand we like to control stuff. And then we learn you can't control stuff. And if you don't get it in that lesson, have a child. You will very quickly learn you can't control stuff. And if that doesn't work, get a cat. Why specifically a cat? Because a cat will not be controlled. Dogs, they're kind of compliant. Cats are like servant, human. They're not going to be controlled. They tend to very subtly control us without our even knowing it. Right? What are you thinking? What are you thinking? Because here's the thing, and we've talked about this before. Our thoughts create our feelings. Our feelings create our urges lead to our actions. Our actions repeated lead to patterns. Patterns repeated lead to an unconscious lifestyle. It's how we just show up. Is that place where we default to, it's always been this way, which is the biggest lie we tell ourselves. Ain't nothing always ever been anything. Nothing. So how does gratitude fit in when things are hard? What are you grateful for? What is the evidence in your life? See, before you worry about what's happening in the world, where's the evidence in your life that something is operating on your behalf that you can't see? Where are those hard moments where you were convinced that everything was lost? And yet, here you are. Here you are. I'm just going to go out on a limb and say if everything was lost, you wouldn't be sitting in spiritual community this morning. You'd be sitting somewhere feeling sorry for yourself, stuck in everything is lost. You wouldn't have a car, you wouldn't have a home, wouldn't have a job, wouldn't have friends, because everything would be lost. Right? So where in your life is the evidence of things not seen but hoped for? Start your faith there. And then we can extrapolate it bigger. Right? I've debated all week whether or not to even mention this. And, you get that knot in your gut that won't let you not talk. Anybody else ever experienced that? It's like, if I don't say this, it's going to torture me. This is Transgender Week, Transgender Awareness Week. It culminates on Wednesday with Transgender Day of Remembrance, where every year we remember the transgender lives that have been lost. The ones we know about. 2023, we knew about 318. This year, we know about 350. I have experienced a really interesting phenomenon since the election. I have been criticized. I've been judged, criticized, flat out verbally run down, because apparently we're not allowed to have concerns in the human realm and simultaneously be at peace. Yeah, it's an interesting thing. I have been told that I must be in denial as a transgender man to have any level of spiritual peace. Either that or I don't know what's going on in the world. I'm in spiritual bypass. No, I'm not. What I am is standing in faith. What I am is practicing what we teach. I've been criticized for moving too quickly to peace. What if I never left it? See, I can fully grasp that the Holocaust didn't begin with the Jews. The Holocaust began with the transgender community. He imprisoned transgender people first, and then gay people, and then the Jewish people. That's how it actually happened. Why did it happen that way? It happened that way because you take the most vulnerable first. And it creates fear in the ones that are left. And with any kind of luck in that mentality, it creates compliance, which is exactly what happened. And people who would normally resist didn't, because what they saw is, I might be next. Right? Now, I can... If you visit my Facebook page, you will notice my cover picture. Some people don't get it. It is very briefly, it is a picture of a rabbit in a hole with a little sign that says standing room only. And the rabbit is saying now serving 9,900,000. It's a big old long number. The rabbit hole is full, people. There is no more room in the rabbit hole. So if you want to go down the rabbit hole, you got to wait. Because it's crowded. We don't have to go down the rabbit hole. We can be perfectly aware of what is happening on planet Earth and be spiritually centered. If you're telling yourself it's one or the other, that will be your experience, but it won't make it your only option. It'll just make it the only option you're taking. Yes. It is a lie that we cannot be fully human and spiritually centered. Yes. That is just a lie. And if you have issue with me being it, great. It's yours. Enjoy it. Nothing will happen for me to stop you because of all the isms I got. Codependency isn't one of them, and I'm too old and too ornery to start now. If that is what you are creating, have at it. If you are interested in how I'm doing it differently, all you have to do is ask. I will tell you, I am an open book. 2 people have actually asked, how are you staying so centered? Because I look for the evidence in my life. I look for the places where I should be dead. I remember the truck full of rednecks in Asheville, North Carolina, who showed up in the middle of the night when I was still in a female body, trying to coax me out so that they could gang rape me, to convert me from being a lesbian to being a heterosexual person. And it didn't happen. Because I was paralyzed. Literally paralyzed, sitting behind a bed, scared to death at 18 years of age, terrified. Somebody called the cops. Wasn't me. The faith in things not seen but hoped for. I just sat there going, God, do something. And it did. It did. I fell 18 feet off a roof, crushed both wrists, split open my head. My own doctor was like, I don't know why you're alive. Other than only the good die young, so you're going to be around for a while. Like, works for me, Dr. Gable. I'm good. Right? I don't know why I'm still on the planet. But what I know is that I'm still here. And when I start going down the rabbit hole of disaster, faith offers me the opportunity to practice gratitude. Where in my life can I find the evidence of things not seen but hoped for? And if I can't find it in my life, can I find it in yours? Can I look at Felicia and celebrate the brilliance of medicine that is why she's even here? Because she shouldn't be by certain standards. But the gratitude of things not seen. My friend Mary Karuba, she didn't know that a young man was going to get killed in a car wreck so she could get a new liver and keep living. See, there's lots of things that if we'll just pause and be grateful for how life works things out. I don't know how anything is going to go today, much less for the next 4 years. And what a fallacy of thinking that like the next 4 years, what about the next 100 years? What about this moment? See, we can get all wrapped up. What about this moment? What are you doing with your precious life right now? Right now. Because I assure you, what you're doing right now will have a much greater impact on your next 4 years than anything that happens in our federal government. What are you doing? What are you setting in motion for you? What are you setting in motion to be prepared for whatever happens? I have Nigerian neighbors. I don't know their immigration status. And I caught myself sitting on the deck wondering, if they come for them, what would I do? Trying to decide. And then Deborah walked out on the deck and the whole plan changed. Right? Would I put my body on the line for them, knowing it could change her life? And I'd like to think I would. I'd like to think it would be okay with her. But the reality of it is, we don't have a clue what we will do or would do or could do until we're in the moment. So where is your energy best focused? Now. Now, so when the shit hits the fan, you can be as messy as you are and be at peace. Even if people find that odd, even if they find it odd, you can be at peace. You don't have to sacrifice one for the other. You can celebrate the election and be at peace. You can be horrified at the election and be at peace. You can love people who voted differently than you and be at peace. You can stop telling yourself the lie you made up about what they actually voted for, that you don't have a clue unless you talk to them. You're making up the story. Who's going to live with the pain of it? They're not. They don't even know you made it up. It's like taking poison and expecting somebody else to die. I'll show you, I'll hurt me, and I'll keep hurting me until I'm dead, and then I'll be dead and you'll be sad. Ha! Really? Right? It's ridiculous, but that's what we do. I'm going to be miserable enough until you wake up. Really? All you're doing is adding to misery. Yes. I'm going to go back to Howard Thurman. When things are at their craziest, I spend the most time with Howard Thurman. I highly recommend anything he has ever written. It doesn't matter what you do. It matters what I do. It doesn't matter how evil you behave. It matters whether I keep my heart open. It doesn't matter how you close yours. You can't stop me from loving you. You can't. You can't behave badly enough to make me not love you. You can't hurt me enough to make me not love you. You can't. I'm in charge of that. Who's in charge of your heart? Who's in charge of the door to your heart? Who has the keys? I recommend taking it off the hinges. Take the door to your heart off the hinges. Burn it in a sacrifice. Because if you don't have a door, you can't close it. Let's take this into prayer. As I allow my human awareness to feel the tenderness, the depth and breadth of this love that refuses to give up on its creation, that gives and gives and gives no matter what. I allow myself to become fully aware that that is my nature, that that is what I am, and that what is true of me is true of all creation. That while I may never understand how a grain of sand loves, I can accept that it is love expressing as a grain of sand. That while I may never understand how the wind experiences love, I can accept that when I feel the wind on my face, it is the divine caressing its creation as its creation. That love is all there is. That beyond human behavior, which is always the separation from an awareness of the truth of its being, that is never the truth, that the truth is at the core one substance. And so I anchor, I place my faith in the belief in that substance that is the substance of all. And so everywhere I look, I see God. No longer fooled by behavior. I see God. And I allow myself to feel the connection. I allow myself to see the divine self. I allow God to see God through these eyes that are the eyes of God. And I am at peace. And I am grateful. I am grateful for the evidence in my life. I am grateful for the evidence in all of life. That where there seems to be no way, God makes a way. That what's in the way is the way. And so I celebrate. I live from this gratitude, reminding myself over and over and over. One substance, one source, one power. And so I let go. I let go of all of the noise that tells me I need to control something. I let it go. I let go of the lie that says that anything can even be against me. Not the real me, not the authentic me. I rip off the door to my heart, hinges and all. And I consciously, intentionally live from, in, and as this open heart. I let go of everything else. And I invite you, if the words of the infinite spoken through this body of mine resonate with you, that you own them as your own. As we say together, and so it is. Just take a breath.